Go ahead and get us started. Um, we are excited to have Dr. Shawn Datchuk from the University of Iowa join us today. He is going to be talking about sentence writing instruction. I'm John Romig. I'm the chair of the Professional Development Committee for the Division for Learning Disabilities. And we're excited to host this Lunch and Learn series. We're excited to see a lot of returning attendees in the webinar. And so we hope these are being helpful to you. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Datchuk.
Okay, thank you, John. Hi, everybody. Hope your Tuesday, happy Veterans Day out there to everybody. Hope your Tuesday's going well, and I won't take up too much of your time, but today I'm going to talk about 5 tips to improve the sentence writing of students with LD. So again, my name is Shawn Datchuk. I'm over at the University of Iowa. Now I've been here over a decade, kind of a blink of an eye, and all of a sudden you have a couple kids, and then I think I'm officially an Iowa native now. Maybe not quite, but at least my kids are. So I'm going to talk about sentence writing. I'll talk a little bit about the overall development of writing skills, and I tend to use a simple view of writing. There's many different writing models out there. And then the meat and potatoes, the main course today will be tips on how to teach simple sentence writing. First up, when we talk about sentence writing over the next about 25 minutes, I really am referring to these two interrelated skills. One would be text writing, and two is going to be sentence structure. Now, text writing is when we write multiple words that follow rules of syntax. So let's say grammar and semantics or meaning. So as students are able to compose multiple words that go together that follow these standard rules of grammar or syntax, and then also they make sense to a reader, that's text writing. And then sentence structure is when students engage in text writing into these set structures that readers recognize. So, for instance, the basis of a simple sentence could be one subject, one verb, capital letter at the beginning, and end punctuation. And then there's also more complicated sentence structures. But for the purpose of today, we're going to take a look at simple sentence structure. Now, we expect students to gradually develop sentence writing across elementary grades. So, for instance, if we take a look at the Common Core state standards, we expect students to be able to produce, expand, rearrange, complete, simple, and compound sentences by the end of second grade. So, here would be an example of a first grade student. And we know that sentence writing, we can't turn it on and off at the flick of a switch. All the skills involved in sentence writing, text writing, sentence structure build up gradually. So here's an example of a first grade student. So I ended up cutting off the cute arts and craft activity that happens above here. But there was a colored in snow globe here at the top, and it said, "If I were stuck in a snow globe, dot dot dot." And this first grade student said, "I would build a snowman with my family." Now, you can tell this student has some aspects of text writing here. So it's following standard rules of grammar. So it has a subject, the I would build. So they're trying to express something, and there is a sentence structure here that would be a simple sentence. But if you notice, they're still working on some different spelling skills. But the great news here is that they are applying their knowledge of letter sound correspondences, of graphemes and phonemes into figuring out what an estimated spelling would be. And unfortunately, for some students, the kind of early difficulties that they experience while they're trying to build up these skills of text writing and sentence structure, they can be persistent difficulties for some students. So now at the beginning, we tend to see students start to generate more writing output, some accuracy issues, but then for some students, they're going to have persistent sentence writing difficulties, including just kind of low accuracy throughout elementary grades. I've definitely seen that. I'm a former K-12 special education teacher, elementary educator. I saw that for some students, even past elementary grades, they would struggle, unfortunately, to write multiple complete sentences. And if we were to take a magnifying glass, so to speak, and take a look at the writing of students particularly with learning disabilities, we could see some of these difficulties. Now, not for all students with LD, but certainly for some of them. We could see some issues with writing output and quality. So just engaging in the act of writing connected text. I'd like you to think in your mind's eye, if you are an educator currently or were an educator previously, think about the student that if you were to give a writing prompt and then circle back later on, let's say in a couple minutes, the student would have written next to nothing, unfortunately. And if you can't engage in writing a lot of writing output, it's not that counterintuitive to make the leap of the overall quality of the writing could be lacking as well. We'd also see some issues with grammar, spelling, handwriting. Today, we're going to take a look at sentence writing fluency. So students would have difficulty with automaticity, with accuracy related to writing complete sentences. And then, so when we talk about sentence writing fluency, we really mean these two interconnected aspects of accuracy and efficiency or speed. Now, why is that important? Why is it important that students are able to generate complete sentences with some accuracy and then also some speed? Well, there tends to be two specific benefits. One would be a cognitive benefit, and then two would be a writing benefit. So, cognitively speaking, we think that when a student develops fluency, sentence writing fluency, they're able to transfer those interrelated skills of text writing and also sentence structure into their long-term memory. Now, that is important because it frees up these additional cognitive resources, so specifically your working memory, to attend to other aspects of the writing task. So, for instance, how convincing is this idea that I thought of? Or perhaps there's different words, these million-dollar words, so to speak, that a student could use during writing. And we tend to see that cognitive benefit play out within writing measures. So what we see is that writing fluency at the sentence level, so sentence writing fluency, and the discourse level, so writing, extended composition, is closely related to overall writing quality. So in other words, if students are able to write with fluency sentences and also discourse or extended composition, those written products tend to be scored higher for aspects of quality, and that makes sense. And they also tend to be a key predictor of standardized writing assessment. So, let's say if you're an educator, let's say here in Iowa, we would see some correlation between a student's ability to write sentences with some fluency with their overall score on the statewide writing assessment. Okay, so if sentence writing is important, and it's important overall to, let's say, the cognitive and then also the writing benefits of overall writing production, what can we do as educators to teach it? Well, here are 5 tips. Before we get into that, here's what we tend to see. So here would be kind of the before and after photo of an intervention. So here's at baseline. So this is from the same student. So they were given these picture word prompts, and the student took a look here and wrote I think that word is stole. So Jane stole piggy bank. Gwen planted. So if you notice here, I mean, they're kind of largely copying the words here. There's some different issues, but as a result of targeted instruction or intervention, what we see is that this student was able to, there's kind of a clear beginning here where they're signaling, hey, this is the start of a sentence. Miss Rice opened the door, a little period there. Tom had a tightrope climbing event, period. Now, these aren't sort of college level sentences by any means. Now, this is for an elementary student. But what you can see is that as a result of targeted instruction, they're able to latch on or acquire the foundational aspects of a complete simple sentence a little bit more. So who can benefit? So across several studies that I've done with some colleagues, we've included elementary all the way through high school age students with disabilities, including learning disabilities. And we've typically included students who can handwrite some alphabetic letters. Now, they need to be able to write at least something. The reason being is since it's a writing intervention, they need to be able to handwrite. It doesn't need to be picture perfect. There can be some legibility issues, but they need to be able to write enough to where you can kind of tell what's going on. They need to be able to spell high frequency words. So they don't need perfect spelling by any means, but in order to write and then read back or edit what you wrote, there does needs to be some spelling skills underpinning what is written. There needs to be some legibility. Students need to be able to read connected text, so roughly at a first grade level or above. And that's because, again, if you're having difficulty with reading, it's going to be very difficult for you to read back what you wrote. So if a student can handwrite some, not the best, at least some, spell some, not the best, but at least some, they can read connected text. It doesn't need to be perfect, but they need to be able to read at least something. But they struggle to write complete sentences. We have typically included those students and have had some success. So, if you're at all interested, it's not the most creative website name I've ever come up with, admittedly, but it's just my name. And so I will send maybe that someplace. But if you actually don't know if I
I'll drop it
have.
in the chat for you, Sean.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you, John. Um, it's just my name, so ShawnDatchuk.com. You can scan the QR code there, or click on the link that John will present. But when you click on that, you're going to see something that kind of looks. Oh, thanks, John. It's going to look something that kind of looks like this. So the things that I'll unpack over about the next roughly 10 to 15 minutes can be found up here on the top ribbon. Now, this top ribbon can sometimes be located on the left, depending on what Zoom your web browser is set to. But if you click on Sentence Instruction, scroll on down, there are different PDFs that you can download. So here would be the student materials. And then we also have suggested instructional language in the form of scripts here. So that's for sentence instruction. And then we also have sentence practice, which would be over here. And there's roughly over 150 different picture word prompts. And we'll talk about those here momentarily. But so those are at my website. They're free. And they were designed using these 5 steps. So steps 1 through 3 would be the design step. So this would occur before we even are in front of students or working with students. So this happens many times. I remember when I was a teacher, my kitchen table on a Sunday evening was typically where I planned or designed my lessons. So those would be steps 1 through 3, and then 4 and 5 would be when we are actually delivering instruction. So I'm going to go through just some brief couple-minute descriptions on what each of these steps are. But you can get kind of a whole taste of the meal by visiting my website and actually downloading and using these things. So the first one would be segment sentence writing into small instructional units. And so in reading, there are all sorts of ways that we can control for task difficulty. So if you've ever provided a reading intervention or reading instruction, particularly at the early elementary grades, you know that you can focus in on the individual sounds, attach those sounds to individual letters, and then gradually build and blend those sounds into words, etc. It's more difficult to do that for writing skills, but my studies and several studies have used these different types of formats to control the task difficulty a little bit better. So there's an identify, complete, and generate format. Identify is where students select examples or non-examples of a skill. Complete is where they fill in the blank, and then generate is where they take more ownership of what the desired behavior is. So here would be an example of identify, to where in here we just present different sentences for students, and they identify different parts. So that'd be 1. 2 is now they're going to complete and have to respond with one part of the sentence. So notice how the difficulty here increases just incrementally. From here, they're just identifying the parts. Here now they need to, in this instance, write the part that names in the blank. So blank sat at a table with a stack of books. So that would be Dell. So notice a little bit more difficult, and then finally generate, to where now they need to take these picture word prompts and then write an entire sentence about these. And then there's a scope and sequence of different instructional units using this format that have been used in different studies. So notice on here, there's first we're having students identify different parts, in this case, capital letter at the beginning. They're completing, they're identifying. So they're going through different phases and cycles of identifying and completing these different aspects of a simple sentence. And then they're finally getting to a generate. So my materials have used this scope and sequence, and it's packaged into 3 to 6 lessons. Now, there's 3 lessons on my website. If a student has difficulty with one of them, it has taken in some studies 6 lessons to reach accuracy with the basic building blocks of a sentence. And then there's also fluency practice after that. And so that would be the 15 different sets of picture word prompts that I have on my website. In addition to my studies, there are larger curricula out there that have adopted this framework or have used this framework even before I started studying it. Particularly Zig Engelman and colleagues use it in expressive writing. And I notice in my intervention lessons, it's really geared to a supplemental tertiary intervention of just a handful of lessons. This curriculum is a broad, expansive curriculum that not only focuses in on sentences, but also paragraphs. So instead of 3 to 6 lessons, there's 50 to 100 lessons. Excuse me. Second step is prepare complementary instructional scripts. So once we have taken those instructional units, next up is going to be figuring out how we actually describe sentence writing to students. Now, this is where it's going to get a little unconventional, and it's going to take some getting used to, so to speak, on adopting some of this language. So a key part, again, of explicit instruction is clear, consistent, concise language. And here's the unconventional part. So in my intervention studies, we've used this language. You name someone or something, in this part, Gary, and you tell me more about Gary. Now, just tell me one thing, spilled milk. Now, I have a 4-year-old at home. He's a little bit past the age of Gary here, but I'm very familiar with what Gary's getting away with here. But we use this definition. So simple sentences have 2 parts. They name someone or something, one. Then they tell more. Starts with a capital, has an end mark. Now, this is unconventional, but it is direct. So it arguably improves efficiency and it makes it easier or quicker for students to latch on to what's involved in a simple sentence because it decreases the complexity. So here would be a specific example. So we could use parts of speech. Now, it is important that students eventually learn parts of speech. It's just, that's what it is. So students will have to know these academic vocabulary words of noun, verb, subject, predicate, etc. But let's think about the initial introduction, or for a student who's having difficulty, let's say. We could say, your subject has your sentence needs a subject. Well, what's a subject? Well, it's a noun. Well, what's a noun? It's a person, place, thing, idea. It could be a state of being too. Or you know what? A sentence also has a verb. Well, what's a verb? It's a predicate. Well, what's a predicate? Well, there's linking verbs. There's also action verbs. There's also these things called gerunds that are verbs that can be subjects. And then pretty soon, if you're trying to help a student that's struggling with sentence writing, you just hear the beep, beep, beep of the vocab truck backing up to where you're just dumping out a lot of different complicated words and having to define those even more. So what this definition does, it allows you to just directly and easily state that this is what's involved in a simple sentence where you name someone or something, in this part, Gary, and then tell me more. Just tell me one thing about Gary. So that's the second thing. And that instructional language is baked in, so to speak, into the scripts that are posted on my website. Then you will need to select a strategy for active student responding. So as a part of that, we're going to have to figure out the modality, so how students are responding, and then a strategy for them to respond. Now, an important thing, not only that I've used in my studies, but has been established in other research, is that there's a clear link between oral and written language. And so while you're helping students develop the written skills of simple sentence writing, this can be a great way to leverage the 2 language systems by having them say complete sentences and also write complete sentences. So during instruction, you want to figure out how can students say complete sentences out loud and then also write them. So for instance, let's say if students are writing or completing this format to where blank held a pizza box and they need to find out who that was, you can easily work in to where they're saying complete sentences and also writing them. So for instance, it could say, teacher, say the part that tells more, held a pizza box. The teacher could say, okay, find the part that names, then say the whole sentence. Let's see. Alexis held a pizza box. Great. Now go write it. So all during the instruction, there's these volleys to where they're figuring out what the parts of a sentence are, saying the entire sentence before they're writing it. And then once they're doing that, you need to pair it with some sort of strategy. Now, writing can be difficult to manage as a teacher because a lot of what the students are writing, you can't easily see. So in some ways, you just kind of need to maybe walk around the room quite a bit. If it's a one-on-one intervention, let's say if you're providing small group or one-on-one, it can be more just a vocal volley. But you might have to use some sort of unison responding. I won't have the time to get into great detail about the different unison responding techniques. So I'll just give a shout out to the wonderful explicit instruction text by Anita Archer and Charlie Hughes from 2011. So if you have any questions, I'd strongly encourage you to take a look at that text. Number four is then we finally, as a result of all that design, to where you've kind of taken a look at the different instructional units on how you can segment sentence writing into these small, less complex formats. Then you can prepare instructional scripts. Again, these examples are on my website. You can select a strategy for active student responding. Now it's actually delivering instruction. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir here on a DLD webinar, but you can use an I do, we do, you do format to where a teacher can show and tell each new skill, lead students vocally and in writing through guided practice, and then having students write down their responses. Importantly, at the end of each one of the lessons that I've posted on my website, there are curriculum-based assessments or exit tickets at the end of each lesson that you can administer to students as the test that you do to figure out whether or not a lesson needs to be repeated. Now, the goal is 90% accuracy, and it would be with again, the basic building blocks of a sentence. And in lesson one, it would be figuring out what's the part that names, what's the part that tells more, using a capital and an end mark. And then after that, after students have a chance to receive that instruction, and again, it has taken about 3 to 6 lessons. On my website, it has the 3 lessons on there. Let's see. And that's again right here in sentence instruction. You scroll on down. Sorry, I don't mean to give anybody motion sickness here. But so for instance, here's the lesson 2 student materials, lesson 1, etc. And then the accompanying scripts are there as well. So after students receive that instruction, sentence writing just can't stop there. For students to commit these important aspects of text writing and also sentence structure to long-term memory, they need to be proficient with it enough to where they aren't actively having to attend oh, wait a minute, is this a complete sentence? We want students to acquire those important skills, but now shift to what are the ideas, what are different things I'm trying to express here. And then so as a result of explicit instruction, hopefully you see students have some sort of accuracy increase. Now with fluency practice, they're going to take the next step, and it borrows a similar structure if you've ever done a repeated reading or repeated math timings, let's say, with math facts. The sentence structure steps largely adopt that. So here would be the 8 steps. So you review a prior score, if any. We'll talk about scoring here in the next couple minutes. Then you give 10 picture word prompts to students. So my website up here has 15 different sets. So let me just pick out lucky number 7, let's say. And then so here's 10 picture word prompts, starting with number 1, the Taylor tape measure, grandma jet ski. Shout out to all the grandmas who jet ski out there over here. So this is the numbers 1 through 10. So we would give students 10 picture word prompts. And in prior studies, we've only given a short amount of time. Now, there are more pictures here than students can respond to within, let's say, a minute or 2 minutes. The reason why you don't want to give too much time there is because it's going to be repeated, so they'll have a chance to do it again. And if you give too much time, you're going to start running into some handwriting fatigue here. So you set a time limit. Let's say it's 1 minute. So you're going to have 1 minute to try to write as many complete sentences as you can. Remember our lessons. You need to name someone or something, tell more, capital letter at the beginning, end punctuation mark. And then once students start writing, you can start the countdown timer. And then so students will get down maybe to first couple. And then after that, when the timing ends, you can collect one of the students' timings. Let's say you're in a whole or small group. And then you can actually score it in front of the students. Now, this is where it's going to be important for you to take a writing product of a student that you've kind of walked through and seen that they've written some things down, that you can highlight some positive things. And you're actually going to score it for a modified version of correct writing sequences. So, for instance, Dan cut a fish, the little girl screamed, Wanda cleaned the stove. So, if it starts with a capital letter, the little, if it follows rules of grammar and syntax, they get points. So they basically get points for each sequence that follows these different rules. And then why are we going through that trouble? Why are we taking this time? Well, there's a big difference between, let's say, these two sentences. So let's ignore this cute little bird picture here for a second. Let's say the children played basketball in the cold, windy afternoon. That's technically one sentence. It's more complicated. It has more, I think, what we'd call $1 million words than this second sentence, the dog ran. So when we initially did initial iterations of this intervention, we would just count, okay, let's just try to write as many sentences as you can. Well, these were students who were struggling with writing, so they kind of figured out, oh, okay, so the dog ran's a sentence. Well, I'm just going to put ran at the end of every sentence that I can think of. The dog ran, the bird ran, the boy ran, the girl ran, the cat ran. And then that kind of got their score up, but that kind of cut across the purpose of what we were trying to do, which is give students an instruction and practice in writing multiple different types of sentences that follow this sentence structure. So we started counting for correct writing sequences with one change. So we want it to follow general rules of spelling. I'll get to that. Capitalization, punctuation, syntax, and semantics. So if it follows these rules, we go, yep, you get a point. We did loosen up the rules regarding spelling into if we can tell what the word is, basically, if it's phonetically similar, we'll take it. So coffee instead of coffee, or birds instead of birds. Now, it's definitely important to provide high quality spelling instruction. But what we found is that if when we started in a practice space and for student practice, when we held tight on it has to be spelled correctly, students started to go, oh, well, I only know how to spell these certain words. So they would only include these, like, let's say 5 words in their sentences. And again, that defeated our purpose. We want them to apply and expand their literacy knowledge. So we said, okay, don't worry too much about spelling, just try your best. And then so in this instance, let's say if a student wrote Roger sprayed water, capital R, Roger sprayed, that makes sense. It follows rules of grammar, semantics, sprayed water, and they also get a point here for the period. So that'd be 4. In this instance, Jake watered the plant. Grammar and everything's looking good. That's cool. Unfortunately, they missed the capital letter, so it would be the sequence or chain was broken. So they got X's here, but they got watered the plant and also period. So they got 3. Fred looked, something happened here. Fred looked the window. So some words missing here. I'm not quite sure, but capital F. They got a period here. Fred looked, something's missing, the window. So 4 and 1. Chances are it's going to take you a little bit of time to get used to correct writing sequences. So hopefully you have scored it for something, perhaps individualized education programs, IEPs. Again, this is slightly different in that we're loosened up kind of some of the spelling restrictions. I would still keep the spelling stringent rules for progress monitoring or universal screening, but for this practice, we've loosened up the rules. And then so we provide performance feedback, and then we would highlight for them, oh, look at all these points you're getting for when we're scoring this. And then we would tell students, okay, let's flip your paper over, and here is a brand new set of the same 10 picture word prompts. So the other ones are out of sight. Now they're trying again. And then these steps would repeat itself. So at the end of the 1 minute, somebody would get feedback. Students would take a look at their sentences. You would talk about anything and any great qualities, anything that they could do to get some more points, etc. And then finally, they get one more chance. So 3 total timings typically happen. Okay. I came in at about 2 minutes under. I apologize. Hopefully there's some time here if you had any questions whatsoever. But definitely feel free to reach out if I could be of any assistance to anybody working on writing. Writing can be pretty hard. So I'm happy to talk with any of y'all.
Hey, Sean, we do have a question in the Q&A section. The question is, what is a tip for the we do portion of varying prompts? Some of our teachers seem to rush this part, but are eager to try new procedures.
That's a great question, Steve. Yeah, I wish I had an easy answer for that. I also experienced that same thing to where once that guided practice part starts to become successful, I think that many teachers will go, okay, this is going well. I can just jump over straight to something else. And thinking about it from that memory perspective, as students will need enough successful repetitions of an accurate skill for it to drive into long-term memory or be committed. So I would just encourage them to actually do the entire we do part, even if it seems like students are having success, and just kind of emphasize that this is kind of the way for them to build up that muscle memory, so to speak, or writing memory. Yeah, let's go with writing memory. Let's get that started, or to build up that writing memory.
Hey, Sean, a question I had is as you were, excuse me, as you were talking about the fluency scoring and scoring the correct word sequences, it made me think it's very similar to PALS and the peer assisted learning strategies for reading. And
Hmm.
it made me think if you thought it would be feasible to teach kids how to score each other's writing sequences and do like a peer-based peer learning strategy for that
Oh.
fluency part.
Whoa. Yeah, I love that idea. If I have any time whatsoever, John, I'm going to bug you about that. And then it sounds like we just need to do that. But I
Yeah.
think that I've seen that even in my studies to where students start to try to score their writing as soon as the timer's up. So I think there is something there to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Our time is up. I hope everyone has a great Veterans Day today. And we will post this recording to all registered attendees, and you'll get that tomorrow afternoon. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all at the next one. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.